All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the Canon Event podcast with me, Sim, and in the co-host chair is
Aaron.
how you doing, man? Long time no speak. How are things?
Yeah, all good, man. Obviously, we've had a busy last few months and not put out as much content as we'd like to, but obviously all good things, all good celebrations. And we are, as you can see, we are champions.
Excellent. You got the champions merch already. And yeah, I mean, God honest truth, we've had a few people asking us, which is nice. A few people asking us, where's your season review pod? I think that'll be the last the 2 cents of that. I think if there's anything to encapsulate for me, it was that moment, that literal outpouring of joy and knowing that we've done it.
Yeah.
Very few things in my life will beat that.
I, I just wanted to make a quick note. I just want to wish Phil Costa a really speedy recovery. He's obviously going through a few things right now. Absolutely lovely guy, and I think we both and all the Arsenal community just hope to see and hear from him again very soon. So, like I said, my friend, just wishing you all the best.
Yeah, likewise, man. Likewise. I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, but Aaron said amazing things about you, and of course, listen to you on the Arsenal Vision. And
Yeah,
stuff,
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, again, just looking forward to hopefully hearing from you soon. But yeah, just wishing you all the best, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. We're gonna do something a little bit different from the usual format, which is where we kind of riff and hope that we get to something that makes a little bit of sense. Instead, we're gonna trial this idea of one question, one primary question. There might be a couple of sub questions that come out of this, and keep it really tight, but really sharp and super informative for our listeners to try and understand actually what are some of the main things that ultimately we're dealing with as Arsenal fans. And at the moment, understandably, it's transfer related. So the main question today is the first transfer window after we've been champions, yeah? And ultimately, we're looking to do whatever we can to hold on to that title. Mm-hmm. And then go another step forward further as well in the Champions League and go and win that thing. So if I was to really summarize it, what is the priority for Arsenal in this transfer window? And we've got essentially 2 sub-questions to that, or basically ways of helping you, Aaron, and me frame our minds in terms of making the right decisions, almost as if we were directors of football, but we've got some limitations to the way in which we make some of these choices. So you can sign any 2 players, but you also have to sell a couple of players in order to be able to facilitate this. We did debate on whether or not we should have a budget, but I think a lot of us who've been following a lot of the stories are already very fundamentally aware that we kind of seems like we need to sell in order to be able to buy. Maybe not necessarily financially, but I think it's actually quite critical in terms of squad balance. So this is an exercise, I think, for us, based on all of the news that we've heard over the last few weeks regarding certain positions and certain Brazilian talent that we will get to in a second, which is very exciting. But also whether or not those things are actually considered the priority. And it will be interesting to see whether or not we have the same view, opposing views, and if we're able to actually answer that question. And then we would love to hear from the rest of the fan base, or those of us who actually listen to the pod, if you agree with our perspectives. So
let's do who to buy. I think that's the more exciting thing, isn't it? I think we always like to know about who's going to join the team.
So there's multiple positions around the pitch that could, in theory, be strengthened. And there's multiple players who have some question marks in terms of what their future is also in the squad. So based on, let's say, some of the shortcomings that we had, despite us being Premier League champions last season, where do you think this Arsenal team can fundamentally improve? Where must they improve in order to give themselves the best shot of retaining that Premier League title and going and winning the Champions League?
Cool. So I think first, it's important to kind of just understand like where we're at as a football team. So I think the caveat I want to kind of mention to that is, when we look at the Champions League final, for example, we look at a team like PSG, who are ultimately the best team in the world currently, in my opinion. Back-to-back Champions League champions, and we went toe to toe with them. The debate as to how we played, that can be, had over, multiple different conversations and this and that. But if we break down both those teams, we look at one team in PSG who, in my opinion, are ultimately at the peak of their powers at the moment. I think they're fantastic everywhere across the pitch. They have an absolutely phenomenal forward line, right? So I think that is kind of amazing. Then you look at Arsenal, and I think there's very glaringly obvious areas that we can improve, right? And I think that's what excites me most, really, about this opportunity, I think I would call it, to really, really go forward and improve this team. I think we look at our goalkeeper, and I think we can basically say that he is one of the best in the world. I think we look at our right back, and we can say the same. We look at our centre back partnership, and I think they're the best in the world. And then we look at our left back, who's very, very good, whether it's Hincapié or Calafiori, for example. And then we look at our midfield. Again, very, very, very strong players there. We've got Declan Rice, we've got Martin Zubimendi, who maybe didn't have the best end to the season through fatigue or whatever reason, but still a very, very good player. And then we've got Myles as well, who's at 19, is he 19, I think, who started a Champions League final. And I thought he was very good. He's fantastic, right? So you kind of see where I'm going with this, where really I think everyone in the fan base understand the forward line is really where we want to improve, and where we can improve. I think the scope of improvement is the largest in that area, right? That's the kind of thing that takes you from being Champions League finalists to hopefully being Champions League winners and being back-to-back Premier League champions. So, to answer the question, I would really focus on those two signings being in the forward line. I would focus on them being on the left wing. I think we need a marquee left wing signing. And I also think we need a new striker. I do. People will maybe disagree because, again, we have Havertz and we have Gyökeres who are there. We've still got Gabriel Jesus on the books as well. But I ultimately think that we need two forwards. And it'd be interesting to really understand, your opinion on that as well, because we have been linked to centre mids, right? Bruno Guimarães being one of those. We have also been linked to centre backs or defenders, right? Through Saliba's injury. Again, important areas of the pitch we understand, but from my perspective, I would be signing two forwards. So that's kind of where I'm landing on that. So before I get into the specifics of that, it'd be good to know kind of like what your thoughts are on that as well.
I completely hear you, and I think I agree definitely on needing a left winger. Potentially, and this is a point of discussion, that you and I have had for many years, is whether or not certain forwards in our team are good enough to be able to carry this team to the level that we would want, or almost to that PSG level to an extent. And yeah, I lean towards getting another midfielder, and I'll explain why in a second, after I hear who your two forwards are.
Yeah.
And hopefully, there's been a lot of debate whether or not that could hinder the progression of someone like Myles Skelly, for example. Are you going to give them enough playing time, et cetera, et cetera? I think I have some opinions on as to whether or not we'll be able to manage that. In terms of defence, I personally, I think you and I are fairly aligned. And the reason why I'm aligned is because if you keep a hold of Ben White, for me personally, he says his knee's completely fine. He's back. He's fully fit. He has the benefit of a whole preseason as well, which I think he's had a bit of a stop-start preseasons of the last couple of preseasons after playing way too many minutes. And I think one of the summers he came in, he was already injured as well. So this is going to be one of his first proper preseasons in a while. I think he can do that job of filling in for Timber. And equally, I believe that we can, Mosquera, who was going from strength to strength, even in that Champions League final, I believe he had a fantastic game, managing Kvaratskhelia in the way that he did. Eventually, if you allow yourself to get attacked that much, you're going to make a mistake. And therefore, I believe the ceiling for him is so high, an opportunity for him to play a lot of consistent games with a centre-back pairing like Gabriel will be massive to his development. You could argue that one of the things we may suffer from as a result of Saliba being out is the fact that Mosquera's ball progression ability is not as good as Saliba's. So do we lose that kind of 6 type centre-back, essentially? If I had to prioritise ultimately where I would have to put my funds, it would still be very much further up the pitch, because I think we have the depth. Even if, let's say, we're still don't have as many bodies. Arteta ideally would have 8 defenders. If we have 7, I still don't think that's a big of an issue, because
that's a good point.
Because you also have Hincapié. These footballers are good enough to be able to play maybe potentially slightly on their weaker side. So if Gabriel or Hincapié or someone needs to shift slightly to the right, or Calafiori, for example, if you're worrying about ball progression, Calafiori is excellent at being as a distributor of the ball, there's opportunities to be able to find workarounds in that. So that's why I'm much clearer on the fact that I don't think we should go too crazy on in every concert or something like this.
And yeah, that's a good point. And just on that point as well, I think the things that we sometimes maybe don't understand as fans as much is that, you know, when we talk about players who have been in the team for kind of consistently like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, for example, let's say we see Saliba and Gabriel, who are the partnership for, let's say, like 11 games in a row, yeah? But then Saliba might have an ankle injury like he did last season, and then Mosquera comes in for one game. He comes in for one game, maybe doesn't have the best game, and then everyone's like, oh, he can't play there. It's like, well, we need to understand that they're also training every day as well in a certain system, right? They're training in a certain way, playing next to people. If you know, for example, like we are very aware now Saliba is going to be not available probably for about the first 3 months of the season, right? Being conservative. So let's say August, September, October, maybe November, we might see Saliba. If we understand that from a preseason level, and Mosquera is going to have preseason, which is fantastic. And he also starts the season in that area, and he's training next to Gabriel, and he's training next to a right back who's going to be consistent. It means they're going to be much more comfortable, and then we will play in a certain system, which is naturally going to obviously help hide some of those weaknesses, and also hopefully kind of propagate some of his strengths, if that makes sense, right? So I think, yeah, listen, Saliba is arguably the best centre back in the world. You know, I think you wouldn't get too many arguments from people if you said he was. Fantastic ball progressor, amazing. So we're going to miss him. We're going to miss that guy. But do I think that that's a huge priority for us right now, going into this next season? No. You know, that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, completely. Yeah, I think that, you know, that makes a lot of sense. So back to the point, we've got two critical areas that we believe that need to be strengthened. Okay. Who you said attack is the area that you would want to prioritize.
Yep.
Who are you going after and why? There is some conjecture that will be there invariably because, you know, there's certain players there that have been said that, and whether or not you think it's realistic for us to be able to get them. But you can also be like, well, again, if it's up to me and I've got the money, then I would try to sign them. You obviously have to add in the caveat of whether or not you think it's realistic too. So I think, yes, go for it.
So the first player would be, I think, probably everyone's choice. Well, 99% of the fan base's choice after yesterday's tweet from David Ornstein and other reports would be Vinicius Junior, right? So absolute Saturday dopamine bomber that was, you know, it was incredible. You know, we don't get that a lot from Ornstein anymore. He seems to have a lot more inside sources about Tottenham and other clubs. So give us our report back, you know? Give us our report back.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Vinicius Junior is the out and out obvious option, right? He is the best left winger in the world. He is a phenomenal footballer. He has been a phenomenal footballer for years now. And, you know, speaking of, you know, his presence in world football, right, is very interesting things that, I'm saying interesting, a little bit more obvious, but also interesting things that, for example, Elliot and Clive were talking about on the Arsenal Vision emergency pod they did, which is that he's not shy to these moments, right? He has played multiple Champions League finals. He's won Champions Leagues. He's scored the winning goals in Champions League finals. He's, you know, won league titles at Real Madrid. He's played in World Cups with Brazil. So he's not afraid at the moment. He's not someone that is going to be, you know, essentially scared of anything, right? Nothing that Arsenal do, or any games that Arsenal will be playing in from now until the end of next season are going to faze that guy, right?
Yeah,
he's easy. He can't. Yeah,
completely agree. I am totally aligned that when I saw that news, I haven't been more gassed in a while, other than from when we won the league. And I literally turned around to my wife. I was like, Vinny Junior, this is it. If this happens, we're on people, you can't touch us. Like we're going to win everything. That's it. That's how I felt. That was the excitement. That was like, it felt like Ozil level excitement over a signing. And maybe Declan Rice to an extent, but I felt, it kind of felt like that was coming.
Agreed.
You know?
Agreed. It's
the game-changing level.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal have never really been big players in the transfer market, right? Like, that's not who we are, you know, because you can try and be cute and you can try and be smart in the market and pick up, like, for example, Solis at 25 million or 30 million for whatever it was. And that might be a great signing. But there's a reason why Vinicius Junior plays for Real Madrid. There's a reason why he wants the money he wants. It's because he's the best in the world at what he does, right? And if you can go and get that player, you get that player. So my first choice, ultimately, if we don't sign anyone else in the transfer window, I'm signing Vinicius Junior. That's my first signing.
Yeah, I'm fully aligned. And, you know, when I never actually thought it was a meaningful possibility. If like at the beginning of the transfer window, if you told me, some people were saying just go and get Vinny, really fair caveats. You know, the relationship with Jose Mourinho is a little bit difficult and frosty, even with Florentino Perez, the whole Mbappe and the chemistry between them, and what does that do to the structure of the team fundamentally. You can tell they haven't won La Liga now for a couple of seasons. That makes sense, right?
Oh, sorry, just on that quickly before you finish.
Yeah.
I don't know this. I actually don't know this stat, but how many times have they actually won La Liga in the last 20 years?
Significantly less for sure compared to Barcelona. Now, they will always say that they fundamentally prioritize the Champions League in any case, but I think we know also from what we've gone through with the Premier League, if you'd asked any Arsenal fan last season what was the priority, even though it was amazing to get to the Champions League, and some Arsenal fans will say, well, we've never won the Champions League, it would have been great, but it felt like to go 38 games toe to toe, and particularly in that context against Guardiola, it's so hard. It's so hard. And even La Liga, to stop Barcelona, who are so consistently the winners.
I think it's 7 times in the last 20 years they've won it, which is when there really is only other one competitor in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not great, you know, it's not great. And just before you finish, sorry to interrupt, Guardiola he came out in a statement, right? And he was talking about how the Champions League is the destroyer of projects, right? Because you ultimately want to win it. And it's very hard to do that. And, you know, if you don't win it, apparently you're a failure. But he kind of sees, you know, winning the league as a much more better determinant of how good of how good a team you are, right? If you're winning your league consistently and you're getting into those positions, the Champions League, the semi-finals, the finals, the quarterfinals, you know, that is a better barometer of a success at a club, you know. So I don't know, like obviously I think Real Madrid fans are very, very happy with what they've done. Obviously you win that many Champions Leagues, of course, but understandably, they still go every week they go to the ground, they're watching La Liga games. They still want to win La Liga,
you see more La Liga games than you see Champions League games, is the reality. I couldn't agree more, to be honest. And I think Vinny Junior is a kind of player, he's a level raiser. And I suppose that also speaks to where the squad is at this point in time. It's win now. You have the right age profile. You have the momentum after winning the league. It's not easy to go and win another league. It's really hard to go and do back-to-back.
Well, we've never done it. We've never done it.
We've never done it. Not in the Premier League era. We've never done it. Yeah. So it means that I think that would be a real statement of intent from the club if they manage to do that. We've spent an exorbitant amount of time on Vinny Junior, and there's rightly so, because you know that this guy is a level. He's a game changer. This is going to put fear into most of the league's defenses, and critically, you're right. I think the Guardiola quote is very poignant, but you know that this guy is perhaps that one thing that could help you go and win the Champions League, which for the club would be insane. It would be massive. So
it's the next step, right?
It's the next step. It's the next evolution for what this club fundamentally and this team and this project that Arteta has built has to do in order to make sure that they cement that legacy as arguably could be the greatest Arsenal team of all time. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of level raising, ceiling raising kind of signing that Arsenal need to make. So out of 10, based on the extremely limited information, what do you think are our chances of making this deal happen?
One being no chance at all, and 10 being absolutely on. I think probably a 3, and I would say that's basically just based off the fact that we've not done something like this before. In my opinion, we are ultimately going to be competing with the whole world to sign this player, and you know we know the level of cash that someone like Chelsea Football Club, Man United Football Club, Man City Football Club will put down, or even Liverpool to a certain extent will put down to get that player, right?
Well, it's just Premier League, right? The only teams that can afford him, really, and he can go to, and then maybe
Bayern Munich, maybe, like, you know, if they really want to kind of push the boat out, and you know Musiala's not really being like possibly the player he's been after the injuries he's had, and at least there's some rumours that he might actually want to go to Real Madrid and play with Mbappe. So like maybe that is something there where he thinks, okay, well, Kane's there and Diaz is there and maybe something's there, but yeah, Premier League really is the only any place is going to give him those wages, I think, in my opinion.
I agree. Right.
I think 3. But what about you, just quickly?
I think I just really want it to happen, but I still can't really go beyond a 5, to be honest, because I think it could be also you're reading certain reports that it's being used as a ploy in order to negotiate a better contract, etc. Yeah. And you can read it in so many different ways, right? The only thing that gives me hope is the one thing that in the Ornstein Bomber tweet, and then he just tweets and then he doesn't say anything about it ever again, which was mental hard flex, is that it's been approved at all levels at Arsenal. So that means that whatever the money, wages and or seemingly transfer fee, my impression is that you might think the Cronkies will actually put their hand in their pocket again because they know that this is a ceiling raising signing. So I'll give it a 5 just because I'm also too scared to go beyond it. But I also want to be a little bit more optimistic and hopefully that we get it done. Your other priority signing is a centre forward. Who and why? Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be Julian Alvarez. Again, I might, there's going to be people out there who don't agree, and I can understand the reservations on that because he's been in the Premier League, he played for Man City, he was good. I thought he was good. I didn't think he was like amazing. I thought he was good though. He's a good player. Like again, he's another one of those players who performs in like certain games. Like in the Champions League, is a very good player. Very good player in Champions League. In the league, I think he scored 8 league goals, right? So it's like he's not like a prolific scorer or something like that. But it's more about what a player like that gives you in terms of kind of like what it allows you to do. So if you look at kind of PSG and the way they play with Kvaratskhelia, Dembele and Doué, and they have these 3 kind of ever rotating kind of 3 forwards who are just, you don't know where they're going to be, and they're just all very dangerous at all times, and you kind of have to be conscious of all of them. I think having a forward line of Vinicius Junior, Julian Alvarez and Bukayo Saka fit is arguably, one of the best forward lines in the world. And we're having a conversation on from last season where we were texting about how actually, again, I love Leo Trossard. Havertz, listen, man, you're a Premier League champion, so I love you too. Martinelli, again, I love you, you're my boy. But and a half fit Saka, we were looking at the rest of the Premier League and thinking, are they even like in the top 7 forward lines here right now? Like, you could argue at different points of the season when we were crashing out a little bit, like we weren't happy, right? If you can completely upgrade that and actually you have Vinicius Junior, Julian Alvarez and Bukayo Saka as your starting lineup, right? If we go into the Champions League final with them 3, I think you're feeling significantly better, right? Then, ultimately Leo Trossard, Kai Havertz and a half fit Bukayo Saka, right? So Julian Alvarez would be my choice, and it also ties in very nicely to the next point that we were going to make about who do you sell, because I think there's quite wide reports here about Gyökeres being someone that we offer in a trade deal there, and as much as I do like Gyökeres, I like the guy. I think it takes a lot of cojones to win 3 league titles in a row, whilst everyone is basically calling you this and that and saying you're not good enough. Listen, without that guy last season, we don't win anything. Yeah, let's make that very clear. He's 18 goals in all competitions, like maybe even 19 or 20, I think it was.
I think it was 21 in total, but and 14 of those were in the league.
Okay, yeah. So ultimately, someone might say, oh, well, that's not that impressive. I can tell anyone right now, when me and you were sitting there in that Everton game at home and it was 0-0 in the 86th minute and we were like, damn, man, this is not looking good. That guy popped up again, you might have been a tap-in, you might say it, but he's in the right position. When it was away at the new Goodison Park, that guy stepped up to take the penalty and he smashed it in. When it was Fulham at home and we were all a little bit like, damn, we need to win this game here, he's the one who stepped up, right? And he scored those goals. So you cannot ignore that. But I think if we're going to be the institution that ultimately we need to be, and sometimes that takes making hard decisions, you don't always get every decision right. Sometimes you make mistakes and you sell players like Chelsea with De Bruyne and like Lukaku and Mo Salah, and you think, oh, maybe we should have kept those guys. But they didn't stop them winning the things that they won. They still won 2 Champions Leagues, right? They still did what they need to do. I think you have to make some hard decisions, and ultimately, I think he would be really better suited to La Liga. I think he would fit in quite well to the Atletico team. I think he's a lovely guy. I think he works really hard and I respect him. But I just think the Premier League maybe is a step a bit too far for him in the way that we play, personally. But again, that's me talking about someone who's only had 1 season in the Premier League. He could, turn up after pre-season this season and completely change my opinion. But my signing would be Julian Alvarez, and I would use Gyökeres as like a Makeweight in that deal.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. And so I guess this is where you and I will slightly differ. I think I'm really excited actually to see what second season Gyökeres could bring. Not because, again, I think he's the technical beast or whatever, but let's say we do get Vinny Junior and we obviously have a hopefully more fit again Saka. I think he gets himself in insane positions, and 2 players who are very good at being able to get to the byline and cross it in, particularly you see quite often from Vinny Junior, he is capable of doing that. I think he would profit a lot and I think you will have learned a lot. Your priorities differ from mine, because I wouldn't go for another attacker as much as I would love to have Julian Alvarez. And if we sign Julian Alvarez, I would be gassed, no doubt. Like, I think he's, again, another, level raising, ceiling raising, whatever you want to say, kind of player. But I wouldn't necessarily call it my priority. And the reason why then I would change, if you'd asked me at the beginning of the summer, is Bruno Guimarães the guy we absolutely need to go for? No, I don't think he was the person I had in my mind. But as soon as I'd heard about it, I was like, and we're using realism here in terms of who Arsenal way of being able to make these choices. It made a lot of sense very quickly. And the reason being is because Zubimendi crashed out last season. Rice is, I think, he's going to need at least all of September, if not a bit of October, to be able to get himself rested and in a fit enough position to be able to compete at the level that he was before. He's a unicorn player. He might be able to get himself back sooner. I just don't want him to, in a way, because if you're dealing with neuro pain in your hamstring, and then you're feeling like you've also got back issues and all these sorts of things, it feels like a car crash waiting to happen, and that for me worries me. So would I feel comfortable enough if you have Rice on the sidelines for a bit, that you only have Zubimendi and Myles Lewis-Skelly really as your two main central midfielder pivots? And, I'm assuming Christian Norgard's going to go. There's a few more of those deadwood players, let's say. And again, Premier League champion, love you, but it's likely that you're going to be sold. That's where I would really consider that more of a priority than going signing another attacker, because I think Gyökeres and Havertz would do a lot and do much better if they have a very prolific couple of left wingers to complement the heavy right side that we have with Bukayo Saka, and hopefully a better Noni Madueke. Jury's out. That's why I would say actually Bruno Guimarães, who can do multiple things. He is an excellent, excellent midfielder. Like, I dislike him as a personality just because of how riled up he used to get me when we played Newcastle. But that just goes to show, actually, is mainly because, he was a bit of a shithouse, but quite contrastingly, he's also a technically very gifted footballer. He can get up and down the pitch. His passing range is outrageous. His goals record is actually far better than I even expected, only when I started paying more attention as a result of these rumours. It made me think to myself that actually this is a player that we really need. And then, of course, when you're getting deeper into competitions and you need to be able to rotate your midfielders and give them breathing space, and that doesn't mean that Myles Lewis-Skelly won't get games. I think he personally will get lots of games as well. One, he's earned it. Two, things like League Cup, FA Cup, even certain Premier League games or even certain Champions League group phase games, I think we can get better at rotating the midfield to be able to give them breathers.
There's a lot of games to play, isn't there?
There's loads of games to play. So I think you have that level of player. And then when you're up against that midfield again, or Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha, and
João
Neves, a midfield of potentially Bruno G, Rice, and either Odegaard, Eze, or Zubimendi, and that concoction, maybe with Myles Lewis-Skelly thrown in there, I think they can compete against that midfield better than what they could before. And he's also left side leaning. One thing I will say. And I don't think Zubimendi is, which we were hoping that he kind of could be, or even Rice is, to be honest. Rice still likes to switch out quite often to the right. So if you can get Bruno G in, and maybe Vinny Junior, that left side attacking unit looks a lot more balanced. Yeah. And that's why I think that's pretty critical.
And then you've got a Calafiori there as well when he plays. And right, it kind of just really an area of the pitch where we kind of don't really tend to really progress the ball down becomes actually the area where everyone's shit scared of now, right?
You don't know which side we go down. And it's very obvious. Attacks start on the right and finish at times on the left.
Yeah, which makes sense, right?
Which makes sense.
We do that side, we overload that side, it comes in that way, people
comes in that way, whatever. But it becomes a little bit predictable. So that's why, these set piece, and being good at set pieces is no bad thing, but you might have to rely on that more than you would like. Yeah. And I think that's the difference between you kind of giving yourself breathing space in games during the middle part of the league where you're grinding out week in, week out, where you just need to be able to just get some nice, easy wins. You're winning in third gear, And that gives you then the opportunity to rotate comfortably, and then get deeper into the Champions League, and then not cook your players.
Yeah, I mean, you made a really good point about Rice, because I think it speaks to the whole kind of like Arteta. You made a statement, right, which is this season, which was, my goal is to get everyone fit in April and May. Right, like that is what we need. We need everyone at the highest level. Ultimately, when we play PSG, Rice was on about 4,500 minutes. Saka was on, on his last legs. Marino was injured, just coming back from injury. Havertz was also kind of really, really trying to get back into fitness. Whereas guys like Dembele had played like 13 league games.
It's a joke. Now, of course, in Liga you can do that. And again, this is
but it's because you have good players. You have good players. You have win games without them being there, right? 100%. So if we can get to a position where we can win games, like you said, where let's say we start a midfield of, Bruno Guimarães and Zubimendi, and Rice is sitting on the bench until the 70th minute, and actually, you have Vinny Junior, you have let's say Kai Havertz, and then you maybe have Madueke there, because you don't need to have Saka everywhere all the time, and Saka can chill. It means that then, you're right. Like we start sharing those minutes, right, and we start sharing what that looks like on the players, and then we don't really see Declan Rice sit there with neuro pain from his spine all the way down to his hamstring, or Saliba saying that his back's gone. These are not normal football injuries. Well, from what I understand, anyway, these are not like a turned ankle, a tweaked hamstring, a bit of soreness in the knee. This is serious fatigue that they're having, right? Serious fatigue they're having, and as we know, international football is just becoming even more expansive. Like there's more tournaments, there's more games, there's longer tournaments. There's going to be even more games. It wouldn't surprise me if they start adding more games to things like the FA Cup, into the Champions. Also, we know Champions League's got more games now, so it is really, that whole thing about having starters and finishers, it speaks to that as well. You're right. Like I can see why you'd go with the centre mid, but if I had to pick, like I said, I'd still go with the forwards, man. I think when you are confident that you can outscore teams, you don't feel the need to constantly play at like a 95% effort press all the time. You constantly have to stomp around the pitch and make sure you're getting to every single second ball, man, because you're only going to score one goal in this game. So we need to make sure we don't concede, and we keep sinking further back into our box, and everyone's just like on their last legs. Yeah, okay, cool. We might concede a goal. So what? We got Vinny Junior, we got Julian Alvarez, man. You give them one chance to putting it in the back of the net, right? It's just like Mbappe. I was like, Mbappe's so funny. I think who was it against? It was who was it? They was in the World Cup, right? And they were playing someone, and France were 1-0 up. Then someone equalised. And then he literally just scored like 2 minutes later. He's like 30 seconds later. He's got the ball from like 30 yards out. He just smashed it in the top corner. Was it Senegal? Yeah, it was Senegal.
Senegal, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Senegal. I was thinking an African team, and I couldn't think. It was in Morocco. Was it them?
No. It was 2-0 to France. Senegal scored to make it 2-1 in like the 90th minute. And I was like, oh, this might get interesting. And then Mbappe was like, no thanks, bam. And I was like, okay, well, that's what great players do. They're just like, yeah, sorry, I'll just turn it on when I want to, right? So for me, one of my old football coaches used to say this to everyone, and it's quite funny saying this to a bunch of kids who are not strikers, but he used to say, strikers get paid the most money because they score the goals. That's it. He's like, that's why I want you to get the ball to that guy. Your job is the ball to that person because he scores the goals. That's it. Right? That's the most important person on the team. And it's fair, before we even started the podcast, we were talking about our own football and how we both kind of found ourselves for some reason up front in our midweek games this week. And actually, no matter what anyone says, yeah, we play centre mid, and it's a very hard job. The hardest thing to do in the world is put the ball in the back of the net. Oh, I think you're still on mute, my friend.
Very true, very true. Yeah. I can see your perspective. I think both points are super valid. I don't think either of us would be upset if either Bruno Guimarães or Julian Alvarez get signed, and one of those two positions don't become another priority. I think there's enough depth in the squad to be able to facilitate and manage it. You could argue that maybe some of Eze's performances, limited as they were in the World Cup, could suggest that he might be able to play a bit deeper. So there is
point of discussion for maybe another time, because
for another time. That's something exactly. Can more players step in certain positions? Can we rotate more? Can we be a bit more fluid in terms of where people play? The only point that I would add is that it's also just knowing Arteta. I think his desire and his need to be able to control every single phase of the game just makes me think that I can't see him not wanting to get another central midfielder in,
Yeah,
especially knowing that Rice is not, he's not going to get Rice right. And also with the Julian Alvarez stuff, it's just Atletico seems so belligerent in terms of not wanting to sell him.
Yeah, well, why would they, right? It doesn't make any sense to them to sell their star player.
And you could still get the same money for him next year.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
His contract is long enough that it will make no difference to his value in the slightest.
Yeah.
Right. You've already told us
Yes.
who you would like to sell for Julian Alvarez. Who's the other? And I suppose, right, I don't know if this is fair. There's players that we think we should sell.
Yeah.
Whether or not we get decent return for them is one thing.
Exactly.
Is there someone out? So Gyökeres is making him a trade is a pretty crazy thing to say. So who's the other one that you would try to sell and you would feel like you have to in order to make space in the squad?
So it hurts me to say this, like it really does hurt because I love the guy. Like I've watched him grow from literally a boy to a man and just win the title with us. But I don't see how Martinelli fits in this team if we go and sign Vinny Junior or a left winger of any left winger, if that makes sense. Previously, if we look at our left wing options, it was Trossard and it was Martinelli. That was our left wing options, and pretty consistently that's been the case. We've just signed Solis, who I can imagine is going to be for that left wing position. If we go and sign another left winger, I just don't see where Martinelli fits in our team, in particularly. Like, do I think he could work centrally? Absolutely. I think if anything, Carlo Ancelotti showed in the World Cup, using him closer to the box and actually as a kind of like attacking midfielder, sort of kind of, like a third midfielder, it can actually be really effective because defensively he's so sound, like he's never going to let you down on the defensive end. And he also has this kind of instinctual kind of ability around the box. However, I just think if Arteta was going to use him centrally, he probably would have done it by now. And also when you think about a business, because this is a business at the end of the day, what players can we get decent money for? I think it's still quite frankly pathetic that our record sale is still Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain for like 40 million, right?
Would you feel comfortable selling him for a higher fee to a rival in the league?
Who would that be? When you say rival, who would that be then?
Man City sold Jesus and Zinchenko to us. Where would you now, whether or not there's a market for him is a different story. But let's say, Liverpool have been long-time admirers of Gabriel Martinelli. How would you feel about that? Because you ain't going to get the money. You ain't going to get that money that you think you should get for Gabriel Martinelli, like 50 million plus. Yeah. You ain't getting it from any other league.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
No Serie A club could afford that. No Bundesliga club other than Bayern could afford that. Maybe they want to back up for Luis Diaz, not sure. And so there's no other Liga team or La Liga team who could afford it either. So
I would say it would take a significant portion of money for us to sell him to someone like Liverpool, or Chelsea, or Man United for that. To be fair, I'm not selling anyone to Man United. No chance ever. No, I don't care how much money you offer me. No one.
If they gave you 100 million for Gabriel Martinelli, would you take it? Bro, I'd take it.
I know you would, but the thought of seeing him in that in that kit would physically break me. Like, it would break me as a human being, because he's the kind of guy who's all in for whatever team he plays for, and I know he would be all in if he went to another team, right? He'd have to be, because that's who he is. And the thought of him being successful for them would just completely break me as a human being, and I just can't do it. So no, I can maybe see if Chelsea came in with that kind of bid, just because they're so terrible at managing players that they probably just fuck it up anyway.
Well, they've got Xabi Alonso now, and I think that makes more of a difference. Maybe
a little bit, but again, we need to also understand this is the Premier League. This is not Bundesliga, and we saw how badly he failed with big egos at Real Madrid. Chelsea football team don't exactly have small egos, those players, right? I think the main problem with their football team is that they don't respect whoever's coaching them, right? That's the problem. Enzo Maresca, who's arguably supposed to be a good manager, they didn't respect him enough, right? They fell out with him ultimately, or he fell out with whoever, and he had too many players, and I just don't see that dynamic working personally going forward. I think it's a poor career decision personally, but that's not, again, a discussion for another time. My answer would be, it would probably take north of 65 million for me to consider selling him to a rival. If someone like Newcastle came in, for example, or Aston Villa, or that kind of team, or Bournemouth, or someone like that, and Nottingham Forest maybe, who I think he would be very, very good. I think he'd be very, very good at a team like that. If they came in at like the 50 million mark, 45 million mark, I would probably sell him. Yeah, and then that's it. I'd probably say Martinelli. Martinelli would be my sale.
Martinelli feels like the obvious answer here. In that position. If I'm being real, who would I prefer to choose to sell? If given a choice, I'd actually rather sell Madueke. If I could, I would. I would rather keep Martinelli and sell Madueke, because I know that Martinelli can even play off the right for me.
It's just not realistic. It's not realistic.
It's not realistic. But you're right. I think if we're playing the realistic game, which might be the word that we've used the most in this entire podcast, it'd be weird, funny to see a word cloud. But yeah, Martinelli for sure. I can't choose Christian Norgard, because they've got to go, really.
Here's a quick question for you, right? Just on that, right? Because I'm conscious that we both picked the same players, so it'd be easy. Let me give you a bit of a harder question. Would you rather sell Martinelli for 35 million?
Yeah.
Or Ethan Nwaneri for 60?
Ethan Nwaneri for 60.
Fair enough.
So, and now he was going to be my second choice anyway. So, and to be fair, in the whole midfield chat that I was giving to you, Nwaneri did not feature in any of my immediate thinking, and that could be terribly short-sighted from me, because I think he's a fantastic player who I shouldn't have gone on loan to Marseille when he did, because who could foresee that Mourinho, another player who we did not mention, so, but that also might strengthen your point to say, do you need Bruno Guimarães? I just think Mourinho's not as good of a ball progressor. He's very intelligent, and I love having him more as a false nine alternative, if I'm being honest. But okay, yes, he's another midfield option. So your Julian Alvarez point could be strengthened further from that perspective. Nwaneri is the guy who would command the fee that is no longer embarrassing from, compared to Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. It would be the case.
Yeah.
And we would recoup that. #pure profit.
Yep. Martinelli's pure profit as well, to be fair, because he's I think he's a homegrown player, and also he signed him
counts
for about
as being
6 million.
Yeah, of course. Any money that we make on Martinelli will be fantastic in any case, for sure.
Yeah.
I just think that, if you want to get better at being a selling club, then you do sometimes have to make hard decisions of players who we all feel super attached to. And I think every Arsenal podcaster will tell you that, and every Arsenal fan would say, do you really want to sell Ethan Nwaneri? No, of course you don't, because he's a HLM boy. He went to school in Archway, and he's Arsenal through and through.
And he's a phenomenal footballer. He's
unbelievable. I can imagine that he's going to do what Serge Gnabry did, and he's going to be an absolute baller, and we're going to look back and be like, shit, I wish we didn't sell him.
But like we mentioned with Chelsea, listen, sometimes these things happen. But
sometimes these things happen. They saw Mo Salah, and they still won. Okay, they definitely financially doped their way to Champions Leagues, and we don't need to get into that either. But yeah, I think it would have to be Ethan Nwaneri. If you're going to make some serious cash and add it to your transfer kitty, that's what you got to do.
Fair enough. So if we were to recap that, I would sign Vinny Junior and Julian Alvarez, and I would sell Gyökeres and Martinelli. Right. You would sign Vinny Junior and Bruno Guimarães, and you would sell Martinelli and Nwaneri.
Yeah, because you said I'm not allowed to sell Madueke, even though I want to sell.
No, you can't. No, because I would sell Havertz tomorrow. I would sell Havertz tomorrow.
Yeah, we're usually touching in the hour and a half territory. So maybe as we get slicker with trying to answer one question and one question only, with some sub questions, we can get it down a bit shorter and a bit sharper. But no, I think there was a lot to discuss here. We've almost encapsulated a lot of the key discussion points in the transfer window in any case, and what will ultimately determine Arsenal's title defense to an extent. But one thing I will say for sure, I'm very excited to see how these second season players from the last summer's transfer window do. Eze particularly as well. I'm keen to see how he gels now moving forward after he's had that season under his belt, etc. So yeah, there's still a lot of players to get behind who are Premier League champions, and we've got to remember that. And our season does not hinge on us winning the transfer window, but we know that there's a couple of players for sure that can make a huge, huge difference to us. Hopefully, and this is what we said before, building a dynasty. And I think the team is ultimately ready to do that now. And we hope that that Andrea Berta and the guys can get those deals done.
That's it.
And equally, sell well, because you've got to get better at doing it as well.
Absolutely.
All right, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
Take care.
First of many. Yeah.
Yeah, we're back. We're back, everybody. We're back. We are back.
We are back next time. Take care.
Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.